And my also.
Okay.
It's perfect. Okay, fine.
Just stand closer to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, three. Guys. 3, 2, 1.
Today we will talk about a very difficult subject on how to draw a face and head. With us is the team as well as our model Olia, also part of our team. I came up with this test exercise, a way to learn the structure of the face, the head, with another sense, not only with sight. You will be using touch. You have to make sure that you have still the same shape on your hands, but you remove them carefully. And yeah, and you look at them from different angles. You examine them and you see, wow, this is the form of the forehead. Just use that sense of touch to examine your face. Well, focus on it a little bit, think about it, you know. Then there are cheekbones. Okay. And now maybe the mouth is an interesting part because the mouth is spherical and it sits on top of the general shape of the face. You know, it's like a rugby ball or something like that, you know.
It's not an insult.
It's not an insult, I hope. Okay, so, you know, so this is the shape. Like in one direction it goes like this, okay, and in the other one it goes like this. Isn't that strange? How round the...
It's amazing.
Okay. Second part, numerical proportions. Obviously faces vary from person to person, but you have to remember the same numerical proportions for each of the faces. The eyes are located exactly in half of the head, but not from the forehead, but from the top. Eyebrows to the bottom of the nose is the same distance as from the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the chin. Then lips, but remember the middle of the lips. From the nose to the chin is something like 1/3. The distance between the eyes is actually one width of an eye, believe it or not. The width of the lips. See, from the middle of the eye to the other middle of the eye. Obviously, the shape of the lips can change when we laugh or we talk. So you have to draw the eyes also on a curve. The ears grow throughout our lifetime. So you notice how older people have larger ears than younger people, but they are roughly located somewhere between the lips and the eyebrow. Let's look at the head from the side, the profile. Because here we also tend to make a mistake that we make the head shorter or less deep than it actually is. It actually has the same or very similar height to the depth. And a little note, because when we draw portraits we also include the neck. Look that the neck is at an angle to the head. Aside from practicing, getting better and better, one has to pay attention and learn different parts of the face. Look at the structure of the eye. Look how the iris is partially obscured by the top eyelid. The top eyelid is a double eyelid, except in Asian people where it's single. Look how the iris is located at the edge of the eyelid here. The eyelids are not symmetrical. So the widest part is actually located somewhere here, a little bit off center. Of course, things change. When you're amazed, you open your eyes. The eye is a sphere, so it has shadows in the corners. Also, the top eyelid is leaving some shadow underneath. So you have a lot of combinations of hard edge, soft edge in the drawing of the eye. You have to be precise with some contours, and then you have to achieve some softness. Let's say, for example, here or here. The proportions here are pretty good. Look how the iris is hiding under the eyelid. Okay, so which one is real and which one is a drawing?
I think in the right side is fake, it's drawing, and on the left side is real life. Yeah.
The nose has to be constructed from a few separate parts. Here, this cylindrical. The tip of the nose, spherical. The nostrils here. This part has to be drawn softly as to not compete with actually here. They have to be in the background. Don't want them to move forward. So here you have to make a soft line. And then you have all these variations here with the cupid's bow and the cylindrical shape underneath, and very important, this shadow underneath.
I don't know. I think I did a great job.
Because I started over, because I didn't like what was going on with the proportions. It felt so weird.
And show how where the end of it, like it's like near the eye, that this is the same line. Yes. And the beginning of the ear. A little bit lower. Yeah.
Look at Maria. Her eyes work very well, scanning the reality ahead. There should be either constant movement of the eyes or the head between the object and the paper. You can sometimes not look at the paper for a few seconds, especially if you're working with, let's say, a contour, and you don't need to lift your arm to move to another part of your drawing. Drawing a large-scale portrait on a horizontal plane of a desk can present some problems with proportions because of the foreshortened perspective in which you look at the paper while you draw. So the way to overcome these problems is either to use an easel and draw vertically, especially if it's not a very tiny drawing, or to draw at a slight angle, that's also practiced, or measuring everything even more precisely more often than in the case of the vertical alignment, vertical plane of the drawing, although measuring should also be done repeatedly. And yeah, the eye area is very important to get that right, because this area will help you with the rest of the proportions of the face, especially horizontally. I usually draw line drawings with a ball pen, or I paint on canvas. I don't do many value drawings with a pencil, but I had done a lot of them in the past actually. I like pencils. I always liked the touch and feel of them, and even the scent. Drawing this portrait, which is quite large, I had to reintroduce myself to using an eraser, perhaps because it's a full value drawing, or perhaps of the horizontal plane. You know, when I sometimes found it useful to just erase a little bit of this and that to leave a highlight or make a small correction. So yeah, I did some mistakes when going to the full value drawing. I was struggling a little bit, but guess what? I loved it. I loved making these little or bigger mistakes. You know, each time you find out that you have to learn something or relearn something that you learned a long time ago, you're a winner. You gain progress and development. Maybe if you knew everything, you had all the skills, you thought you had all the skills, which never happens, there's always something to learn, that would be the end of fun. So I started to draw some shapes and outlines, measuring everything a few times. And then at a certain point I felt the need to switch to a darker pencil, 2B. 2B is your standard pencil for sketching, for most people who do that. They prefer 2B, sometimes HB, but more often 2B. When I was running out of range in dark values, I switched to 4, 6 or even 9B. And I also experimented some time ago with 12B, which I thought was ridiculous, but it was such a great experience to draw with this very soft pencil. So this transition to a softer pencil also saved me from applying high pressure on the paper, thus risking tearing a hole in the paper. And as a side note, I probably should have used a slightly thicker paper for full value drawing. So the paper that I used was more suitable for elaborate sketching, let's say. As for the technique of shading, it can be done either with very tight loops, constant pressure applied, or constantly changing the pressure and going somewhat back and forth in the drawing in the particular area. And I noticed how students do hatching or cross-hatching, but no matter which one of these approaches you prefer, in European tradition of drawing and painting, some shadows are more important than others. The shadows that define the form and the sort of a 3D look, three-dimensionality, or illusion of three-dimensionality on a flat surface of drawing or painting or graphic work, they are more important than other shadows, which can be either made lighter than they actually are in reality, or even omitted. I hope you liked the episode. If you have any questions or suggestions, or you just want to say hi to us, leave a comment. It really helps to gain more viewers. And if you liked the content, obviously subscribe, give it a like, and put that bell notification. And we will see you in the next episode. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.